5 dangerous mistakes parents make in raising children. A child will never forgive these. This video will be useful even for those who don't have children yet, as they are likely to appear in the future. You might make these mistakes, so it's important to watch it till the end. And why should you watch it? Because I often communicate with grown-up children who were raised in families where such mistakes were made. The transformation of the inner world faced by women who come to me, as well as men, can sometimes be extremely difficult. After all, following such parental errors, it becomes pretty challenging for a person to find themselves in this world and be happy. The first dangerous mistake in communicating with children is demonstrating how to degrade through personal example. When a man and a woman are in conflict with each other, the child becomes a witness to unhappy relationships between mom and dad. Perhaps the relationship is destructive and abusive. The mom suffers from the dad. He calls her names, hits her, humiliates her, pushes her. She constantly cries, complains, maybe over the phone to friends or family, about her man's affair. If the child sees all this, expecting them to grow up capable of creating their own happy family is quite doubtful. Children are brought up and absorb information similarly to what they see and feel. In such destructive relationships, a distorted model of family interactions and values is easily formed, especially if your child begins from childhood to develop a victim, rescuer, or aggressor position, or form, say, an avoidant personality type. In this case, relationships can become dangerous. I'll give a simple example related to the avoidant personality type. A woman approached me who was raised in a family where there were constant scandals, conflicts, fights, and infidelity. Meanwhile, the parents reconciled, forgave each other everything, but then began arguing again. There was an atmosphere in the family where hatred, violence, and infidelity were mixed with love on one hand and on the other. The girl heard both about love and betrayal. Now, when she's an adult, she avoids close relationships with people because she considers them dangerous. Why? Because she always saw how her parents' close relationships hurt them. Moreover, both mom hurt dad and dad hurt mom. Now this adult woman cannot build harmonious relationships with men due to distrust, fear, and attitudes formed in childhood. Her goal is to do everything possible to keep anyone from getting too close to her. She chooses men with significant flaws or personality traits just to have reasons not to get closer to them. In her interaction with men, the task is to identify some aspects of their character that would serve as grounds for distancing instead of seeking to reveal their good sides. This is just one example. It doesn't mean that all women raised in similar conditions necessarily develop codependent or avoidant personality types. There is also the possibility of developing a dependent predisposition, the tendency to be a victim, rescuer, or aggressor. The second dangerous mistake when interacting with children is comparison and criticism. This occurs when parents compare their child with others, criticizing the child's personality. If you've ever heard phrases like, "Look at how Michael studies," or "Jessica's tights are always clean," "She's so neat," you know what I'm talking about. Why are criticism and comparison dangerous? First, the problem arises when we move to criticizing the personality instead of the actions, which is a fundamental difference. For example, if a child did something inappropriate, it doesn't mean that disciplinary measures shouldn't be applied. Of course, they are needed, but parents often shift to criticizing the personality. Instead of saying, "I'm upset with what you did," such as when a child cuts their grandma's bangs, they might say, "You're stupid," or "You're shameless. Get out of here." One should never demean a child's personality. It's essential to explain their mistakes precisely and diplomatically. Let me give a simple example. There is a common condition known as procrastination, or the syndrome of postponed life, where a person does not take action to achieve their goals. Once, a woman came to me for a consultation who labeled herself as lazy, accomplishing nothing. Despite her talents and the desire to develop them, she constantly postponed implementing ideas and business plans. When we started exploring the root of the problem, it turned out she was raised in a family with very harsh criticism and comparisons. Since childhood, her personal boundaries were violated both physically and intellectually, affecting her self-esteem and confidence. The girl did not develop willpower qualities, and she lacks confidence in her abilities and significance of her own personality. Every child undergoes what is called narcissistic verification in childhood. They realize how significant their actions, deeds, and values are. If this process didn't occur, problems begin. A woman may remain in the same place without changing anything in her life for years, content with little, postponing her goals and dreams for later. Criticism and comparison may exacerbate the situation. If you want your children to be insecure and unsuccessful, a lack of skills and knowledge will be the result of your constant criticism. It will negatively impact not only their ability to advance in their career, but also create severe problems in relationships. Such children often attract people who try to signify their importance. Usually these are men needing rescue. There are women rescuers who constantly date problematic men such as playboys, mama's boys, alcoholics, or drug addicts. Why does this happen? Because the valuation of their own personalities was depreciated, and they look for even more devalued people to feel somewhat meaningful against their background. Think about how far-reaching the consequences of simply comparing your child to others can be. Look how Jessica studies and you're useless. Never do this, otherwise your children may never forgive you. The third dangerous mistake in communication with a child is having high demands on them. You're referring to situations where parents create environments where a child must be the best in everything, the most successful student, exemplary in behavior, pride of the family. Often this approach is connected with parents trying to solve their internal conflicts through their children's achievements. A real-life example. A woman came to a consultation with an issue of mega complicated relationships with her daughter. They got along perfectly until she was 12, but now that the girl is 14, everything changed. The daughter became rude, joined strange companies, threatens to run away from home. During the work process, it was discovered that the mother grew up in a large family where no one paid attention to her personality. She was always overlooked in favor of her younger siblings and received less attention. When she grew up, she couldn't get a higher education due to financial constraints. Later, she felt undervalued by her husband as well as colleagues at work. The way she chose to increase her self-esteem was through setting high expectations for her daughter. Despite her actions aiming for the ideal in the form of her daughter, they didn't really concern the daughter's own interests. This woman's story shows that setting overly high expectations for children can indicate solving unresolved problems of the parents. To answer the question of how not to be too demanding of your child, it's crucial to understand that demands on children shouldn't serve as a tool for resolving parents' own internal conflicts. It's necessary to build trustful and respectful connections with children, taking into account their individual characteristics and needs. This issue ties in with how not to be overly demanding of a child. My friend has a child who comes home from school and plays computer games until evening. My friend seems indifferent to this, and if nothing is demanded from the child, he will just dive deeper into the games. This could harm his studies. How not to be demanding in such a situation? First, you need to understand what the child finds in the computer game. Games are stylish and engaging, allowing the child to feel like a hero, important, and needed. If the game is online, they might have a team, like-minded people sharing his interests. If a child is raised in a family where the parents are strictly demanding, without any interaction with them through love and mutual emotional exchange, tactility, and joint activities, it will be hard for him to find support in the real world. Such upbringing makes games the only source of positive emotions for the child. Here's an example. Going out for a walk with my daughter, it's plain to see whether a parent is involved or not in the communication with their child. A little boy runs around, plays with a ball. The dad sits on the bench with a phone in hand, occasionally glancing up to check if the child is okay. Naturally, it's intriguing for this boy to be in a group, so he throws the ball and runs to join older kids to play with them. However, the older kids shoo him away, saying he's too young for their company. The father comes, takes the child, breaking his interest again, hands him the ball and sits back on the bench. Over time, this toddler absorbs everything like a sponge. As he grows up, he'll search for places where he can feel a part of some community or group. This is explained not only from a psychological standpoint, but also from the perspective of the hormonal system. Imagine we both have a common topic, say a cool microphone you brought today. I will ask you tons of questions. And if another 8 people join us with different microphones, and we spend 2 hours discussing this topic, first, everyone will start producing oxytocin actively. It appears when people feel needed, important, safe, interesting to others, surrounded by love and affection. Oxytocin can also be released in less harmless situations. For instance, 3 people with a common goal will experience the same oxytocin production due to feelings of community. Indeed, children seek places offering vivid emotions and impressions. Hence, parents should pay attention to how they spend their free time and what kind of example they set for their children. Before making demands and scolding them for minor hobbies, it's helpful to consider one's own behavior. For example, a father came to me complaining that he couldn't get his son interested in sports. He took him to various sections: wrestling, sambo, swimming, taekwondo, but the son wasn't interested anywhere. I asked, "What do you do yourself?" He replied, "Nothing." Where then would the child get motivation to engage in sports? Because children often want to be like their parents. During the conversation, we discovered an interesting detail. It turned out the son was copying the father's habits. They even drink tea the same way. The father told that while watching TV, he tucks one leg under and lays the other over it, bouncing them, and the son does the same, even sleeping the same way. This father found answers to his questions himself, realizing he could influence his son by setting his own example. Any parent's duty is to create conditions in which the child will follow their lead. This should include joint activities, allowing children to step beyond virtual communication and show interest in the real world, including physical activities and other pursuits. The 4th mistake lies in depriving a child of childhood. A truly dangerous mistake some parents make, assuming that a multitude of clubs, sections, and lessons will make their children happy and successful in the future. However, such overload can have serious consequences. Here's an example from the opposite side. A client of mine, undergoing therapy, shared his story of once being a drug addict. Having tried every type, even traveling to India in search of himself, he was in constant turmoil. In his youth, he didn't have the opportunity to be just a child who could afford downtime and doing nothing. As a result, his addiction became a sort of escape, a way to permit inactivity through a destructive path. Such perfectionism from parents is dangerous for several reasons. Firstly, during growth, many aspects of physical and psychological health form in children: muscular structure, nervous system, willpower, and self-esteem. Endless busyness puts children at risk of forgetting their inner world and interests, hindering them from realizing their place in the world and their needs. Another client worried intensely about raising her children accordingly. Their day was scheduled to the minute, leaving almost no room for rest. This created a mechanical routine instead of providing children space for free play and self-expression. It's important to remember that children need time for genuine, carefree childhood to grow up as happy and confident individuals. Depriving a child of love and attention is among the most perilous parenting errors. Parents using emotional rejection or silence as a form of punishment may cause serious harm to their child. When parents express dissatisfaction by refusing interaction, the child begins to feel unnecessary and guilty. This can lead to developing a sense of shame and guilt for things genuinely beyond their control. In the future, this feeling can turn into a constant lack of self-confidence and fear of making mistakes, along with striving to find fault within oneself for surrounding issues. For instance, a woman consulted me, deeply worried over her childhood traumas. She recounted how her mother used the silent treatment as punishment. If the daughter brought home a grade lower than expected, the mother became cold, unavailable, saying, "Stay away, I don't acknowledge you." Such actions often prompt children to prove their love and deservedness of attention, potentially causing significant emotional issues and staking claim on their self-worth. Parents must understand that even during disappointment or anger, children should remain assured of their love and support. This builds a foundation for trustful relationships conducive to healthy personality development, preventing potential inner crises in the future. Do share your stories and experiences in the comments regarding how such interactions affected you or acquaintances. It will aid in better understanding the issue and avoiding similar mistakes. Depriving a child of the feeling of love and security is indeed one of the most destructive actions a parent can undertake. It's a scenario breeding not self-assurance and trust, but fear and worthlessness. Every child should feel assured in the unconditional love from parents, irrespective of success or failures. It's vital for children to comprehend, even during rebuke or criticism, their love remains intact. Approaching your son, a prime example of maintaining this important emotional connection. Make sure he knows your remarks concern specific actions and situations rather than his overall personality. For instance, telling your son, "Nicholas, I love you very much, you will always be my son, and my love for you is unchanged." However, it hurts when you promise something and fail to fulfill it. Let's discuss how we can address this together. This manner of communication allows the child to focus on correcting specific problems rather than seeking parental love or fearing its loss. This fosters foundational trustful relationships, enabling the child to consciously recognize and work on their mistakes without fear of rejection. Open communication, acknowledgement of the child's successes, and attention to their emotions help reinforce trust and attachment. This creates a healthy basis for emotional development and equips the child to navigate challenges more effectively, building strong self-esteem. The fear of rejection truly stands as one of the deepest and strongest fears tied to human survival. Historically, humans survived through socialization and group interaction. Being rejected meant facing numerous dangers alone, possibly leading to death. Thus, this fear ingrained itself within our psyche, manifesting intensely in childhood. When a child feels a lack of love and attention from parents, it can yield destructive outcomes for their emotional and physical well-being. Chronic stress stemming from constant rejection-induced fear may lead to chronic activation of the sympathetic nervous system. This fight or flight condition boosts stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, beneficial for short-term stress, yet detrimental in prolonged exposure. If punishing through emotional rejection becomes a regular aspect of upbringing, a child may consistently experience anxiety and fear. This state obstructs developmental processes, learning, and healthy relationships. The child faces ceaseless devaluation and criticism, undermining confidence and forming erroneous views on self-worth. Regrettably, such interaction methods might lead to long-term negative consequences such as depression, anxiety, and social isolation. To prevent this, parents should strive to foster an environment where the child feels loved and accepted. Here, it's imperative not merely to avoid emotional rejection, but also actively express support, care, and respect towards the child's personality. Supporting open dialogue, acknowledging the child's achievements, and paying attention to their emotions help fortify trust and attachment. This nurtures a robust foundation for emotional growth, guiding the child towards becoming resilient and confident adults. The situation certainly causes serious concerns, highlighting the need for parental awareness about how their words and actions can impact a child's emotional and psychological state. Using rejection fear as a manipulation or discipline means is extremely damaging, possibly birthing long-lasting mental health effects on the child. When an adult tells a youngster he will leave him and he's unneeded, it invokes tremendous fear and insecurity in the child. At such an early age, children heavily rely on parents, requiring their care and support to feel protected. Comparing this to jumping from a height without safety equipment is fitting. The parental love and presence for a little one stand as the sole anchor and safeguard. It's crucial to remember that fostering through positive reinforcement, sustaining open and loving communication, proves far more effective than reliance on fear or threats. Forgiveness, patience, and explanation of one's behavior and feelings enable children to evolve into emotionally sound and assertive individuals. If observing such situations, your insight and wisdom can become valuable for those still oblivious to their actions' repercussions. Together, we can foster a safer, more understanding setting for future generations. And a crucial point, if it doesn't work out, for instance, there's a category of parents who grasp much mentally, yet during conflict with the child cannot employ constructive pedagogy, there's no need to panic. Even if you criticize the child, comparing him with other boys or girls, underscore only flaws, and emotionally or intellectually humiliate him to the point of demise, at least conclude by saying, "I love you very much. Please forgive me if I hurt you somehow." That phrase, "I love you," holds enormous importance for the child's understanding, because unfortunately, children perceive any educational system, regardless of destructive intensity, as a sign they are no longer needed and beloved. Do not transform your kids into future psychologically vulnerable individuals. To summarize succinctly, a child caught in such an upbringing system is a child with destroyed self-esteem. See you soon. Goodbye.